The television courtroom had seen every kind of unbelievable claim imaginable over the years. People insisting their neighbors were spying on them through air vents. Defendants demanding compensation for invisible damage no one could prove existed. Plaintiffs bringing psychics into court as expert witnesses. But in all of Judge Judy Sheindlin's legendary years on the bench, nothing had prepared her for the moment Karen Mitchell confidently stood in court and made a statement so absurd that the entire room stopped breathing. "Your Honor, my 8-month-old daughter witnessed everything and told me exactly what happened." The silence that followed was immediate and absolute. Judge Judy's pen froze halfway across her notepad. The bailiff blinked in confusion. Even the court reporter stopped typing for a second, wondering if she had somehow misheard what had just been said. Meanwhile, Karen Mitchell stood there proudly, balancing her baby on one hip with a smug look on her face, completely convinced she had just delivered the winning argument that would destroy her neighbor's case once and for all. What unfolded over the next several minutes wasn't simply another outrageous courtroom moment. It became one of the most shocking and unsettling incidents ever captured on daytime television, because beneath the bizarre testimony and dramatic courtroom confrontation was something far darker than anyone initially realized. What started as a petty dispute over a damaged stroller quickly turned into a heartbreaking mental health crisis that forced Judge Judy to make one of the most controversial decisions of her career. At first glance, the case looked completely ordinary. Karen Mitchell was suing her neighbor Jessica Martinez for $2,500 over alleged property damage. According to Karen, Jessica's dog had destroyed her expensive designer stroller and traumatized her infant daughter in the process. On paper, it sounded like the type of neighborhood dispute Judge Judy had handled thousands of times before. Two angry neighbors, one damaged object, one side blaming the other. Standard small claims court drama. But there was something in Karen's written statement that immediately bothered Judge Judy. Years of courtroom experience had sharpened her instincts, and the wording in Karen's complaint didn't just feel exaggerated, it felt disconnected from reality. The claims weren't merely dramatic. They carried the tone of someone who genuinely believed something impossible was true. Karen Mitchell was 38 years old and described herself as a full-time mother and social media influencer. Although her online presence barely existed, her accounts were filled with increasingly strange posts about her daughter Sophia, whom she claimed was an extraordinary child destined for greatness. Karen constantly wrote about the baby's advanced intelligence and insisted other people were too blind to recognize her gifts. Neighbors in the apartment complex described Karen as difficult and increasingly paranoid. Over the span of 6 months, she had filed complaint after complaint against other residents. She accused neighbors of making noise no one else could hear. She claimed people were harassing her despite security cameras showing no evidence of it. She had even been removed from online parenting groups after repeatedly spreading bizarre medical misinformation and insisting traditional pediatricians were hiding the truth about gifted infants. Jessica Martinez, the defendant, couldn't have been more different. She was a 34-year-old ICU nurse who worked exhausting hospital shifts and lived quietly with her tiny Yorkie named Buttons. The dog was a certified therapy animal and, according to everyone in the building, barely barked at all. Jessica's side of the story suggested Karen had been harassing her for weeks after Jessica politely asked her to stop blocking the apartment entrance with the oversized stroller. And interestingly, the alleged stroller attack supposedly occurred exactly 1 week after that confrontation. When the courtroom cameras began rolling, everyone expected another routine argument between neighbors. The audience settled into their seats while production assistants made final adjustments. Judge Judy reviewed her notes one last time, already sensing the hearing was about to spiral somewhere completely unexpected. Karen entered the courtroom with overwhelming confidence. Her appearance was carefully curated, from her expensive outfit to the designer diaper bag hanging from her shoulder. She walked in like someone expecting applause rather than judgment. On her hip sat baby Sophia, happily chewing on a teething ring, unaware that her mother was about to place her at the center of a national spectacle. Karen believed this hearing would finally prove she was right about everything. She imagined herself going viral after embarrassing Judge Judy on television. She had rehearsed every expression, every argument, every dramatic pause, and most importantly, she believed she possessed one unbeatable piece of evidence. Her baby Judge Judy opened the case in her usual direct style. M's. Mitchell, you're suing Miss Martinez for damaging your stroller and traumatizing your daughter. Tell me what happened. A simple question. But Karen immediately turned the answer into a theatrical speech. She described Jessica's dog as vicious, dramatically waving her hand while speaking in an exaggerated tone that sounded more like a soap opera performance than legal testimony. Instead of calmly explaining the incident, she launched into complaints about irresponsible pet owners and neighborhood safety. Judge Judy interrupted her almost immediately. Ms. Mitchell, I didn't ask for commentary. I asked you what happened to your stroller. The mood in the courtroom shifted instantly. Most people would have recognized the warning and adjusted their tone. Karen did the opposite. She sighed loudly, not a nervous sigh, not a stressed sigh, a dismissive, irritated sigh, directed straight at Judge Judy herself. Then she said something that made the courtroom freeze. Well, if you'd let me finish. Gasps spread through the audience. Judge Judy slowly leaned forward, her eyes locked directly onto Karen. Excuse me, she said quietly. Did you just sigh at me in my courtroom? The tension became suffocating, but somehow Karen still believed she was in control. She smirked, actually smirked. Then she began lecturing Judge Judy about how advanced children required a broader understanding of development and safety. She insisted her daughter wasn't an ordinary infant and claimed the situation was far more serious than anyone understood. Judge Judy remained calm. What evidence do you have that the dog damaged your stroller? Karen's entire face lit up. This was the moment she had been waiting for. I have a witness, she announced proudly. Judge Judy prepared to write down a name. And who is your witness? Karen adjusted the baby on her hip and smiled. My daughter Sophie saw everything. Confused murmurs swept across the room. Karen continued confidently. She told me exactly what happened. She told me the dog attacked the stroller and scared her. This time the silence was even heavier than before. Judge Judy slowly placed her pen down. Ms. Mitchell, your daughter is 8 months old. Correct? Karen nodded enthusiastically. Yes, but she's exceptionally advanced. Judge Judy's expression didn't change. How many words can your daughter speak? Karen immediately launched into an explanation about how Sophie communicated differently from normal children. She claimed the baby spoke in full sentences when they were alone together and described conversations they supposedly had about food preferences, feelings, and observations about the world. The courtroom stopped feeling like entertainment. People were no longer laughing. They were becoming concerned. Judge Judy carefully continued questioning her. And your daughter verbally described this dog attack to you? Karen nodded again and reached into her diaper bag. She pulled out a journal. Inside were pages upon pages documenting supposed conversations between herself and her infant daughter. Karen proudly read one entry aloud in which the baby allegedly described being terrified by the dog in complete sentences. Judge Judy flipped through the notebook slowly. Every page made the situation worse. The entries described an infant discussing emotions, philosophy, observations about human behavior, and even opinions about the world around her. It wasn't exaggeration anymore. It was an entire fantasy reality, carefully documented by a mother who appeared to genuinely believe it was true. Have you shown this journal to your pediatrician? Judge Judy asked carefully. Karen's expression instantly hardened. I don't need doctors telling me about my own child, she snapped. Medical professionals refuse to acknowledge gifted children. That answer changed everything. Judge Judy realized she was no longer dealing with someone trying to scam the court. This wasn't manipulation for money. This was something much more dangerous. A woman who truly could not separate infant babbling from actual speech. A mother trapped in a growing psychological delusion, reinforced by online echo chambers instead of professional help. Judge Judy's tone shifted completely. Ms. Mitchell, I need you to listen carefully. Your 8-month-old daughter cannot speak in sentences. She cannot testify. Babies that age babble. They may say simple sounds like mama or dada, but they do not hold conversations. What you are describing is medically impossible. Karen's eyes filled with tears immediately, but not tears of realization, tears of anger. You just don't understand, she argued. My daughter is gifted. Judge Judy stood slightly from her chair, her presence suddenly dominating the entire courtroom. Do you truly believe your baby speaks to you in complete sentences? She asked quietly. Or are you interpreting normal infant sounds as language? Karen looked around desperately. Then she answered, yes, I believe it. The room fell silent again. At that moment, Judge Judy understood this case had crossed into territory far beyond television drama. This was a serious mental health emergency, unfolding in real time. Then came the decision that shocked everyone watching. Ms. Mitchell, Judge Judy said firmly, I am ordering a mandatory psychiatric evaluation before you leave this courthouse today. Karen looked horrified. What? You can't do that. But Judge Judy continued, I am also notifying Child Protective Services to conduct a welfare check on your daughter. The audience audibly gasped. Karen broke down, crying, clutching the baby tightly, while insisting she was a good mother and begging them not to interfere with her family. Judge Judy's voice softened slightly, but her decision remained final. A mother who genuinely believes her infant is speaking in full sentences may not be capable of accurately assessing her child's needs. This isn't about punishment. It's about protecting your daughter and making sure you receive help. A clinical psychologist entered the courtroom moments later, having already been arranged by the production team after Judge Judy reviewed the case file beforehand and recognized the warning signs. Judge Judy officially dismissed the lawsuit, ordered Karen to pay Jessica's legal costs, and informed her that refusing evaluation or cooperation with Child Protective Services could result in emergency custody intervention. As Karen was escorted from the courtroom in tears, still clutching her baby, the audience sat in stunned silence. Nobody had expected this. What began as an absurd courtroom moment had transformed into something tragic and deeply human. Judge Judy finally addressed the cameras directly. What you witnessed today was not entertainment, she said. It was an intervention. 30 days later, the truth became clear. Karen was diagnosed with severe postpartum psychosis, accompanied by delusional symptoms. With proper treatment, medication, and therapy, she slowly began reconnecting with reality and rebuilding a healthier relationship with her daughter. Eventually, she publicly apologized to Jessica Martinez and later became an advocate for postpartum mental health awareness, helping other mothers recognize dangerous warning signs before things reached a crisis point.